Gosh, what's wrong with my mind today? 2024. The meeting is, as indicated, scheduled to run between 9 and 12. We do have a few issues, items that need to be dealt with in the open, and we will then close the meeting and deal with any governance matter in a closed fashion, as it is customary. With that, welcome. Members, can we then go into the agenda itself? There were changes that were proposed in terms of rearranging of the agenda. We're in agenda item 12 will be dealt with in a closed session, and then agenda item 13 will be deleted. So those are the changes, members, that were proposed, deleted because in terms of the report itself, we don't actually have a report for agenda item 9. But with those changes, members, can I see by show of hands if we can adopt the agenda?
Chair, just one thing on agenda. To me, there's agenda 11 and not 12 on convene. Sorry, there, just to patch in.
Yes, I've seen for some reason the agenda items. For instance, the agenda item that says it's 12 on convene, it actually says it's agenda item 11. So I was going to. So in essence, what we are then saying is that we'll move agenda item 11 to just before we deal with the minutes. If that's I assume that's what we are saying, Mr. Mkhize.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. With that correction, members, can I again see by show of hands if we can adopt the agenda? Thank you, Mr. Pukula. Thank you, Madam Bongose, and thank you, Mr. Mkhize. We are all still learning with this. There are some things that appear properly on board pad and don't appear in the same way, Mr. Dlamini, on convene, and the agenda is the same as well. So I guess we are all still learning. With that, members, there are forms, the declaration of interest forms that we need to complete, indicating any interest that we may have on any of the issues that are on the agenda today. Please complete those and send them back to Mr. Dlamini. As indicated, Mr. Dlamini, I've been since Friday, I've been asking this question. I don't know, I've not exactly gotten a response yet, but I personally, on convene, I just complete the form and sign it and share it with you. So I don't know whether there's still a need to actually email it to you, having it done that way. So if you can just verify, if you need it to be emailed, please so indicate. I'm not sure how the other members are dealing with it. But members, are there any verbal declaration perhaps on any of the issues raised? On any of the issues on the agenda? If none, Mr. Dlamini, I saw your mic was flickering. Were you wanting to respond?
Yes, I was saying, Mr. Committee, to be on the safe side, may you please email it to me as well, sir?
Okay, will do. All right, thank you. So that goes to all the members. But there must be a reason why it can be shared. So you are supposed to be able to see it on your side. But yeah, I'll do accordingly. Members, we can now move straight on to the agenda. Mr. Ngumalo, can you assist us with item 5, please?
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, on this item, really what we are presenting is a brochure that we've developed on the inquiry that was conducted by the division in 2023 to facilitate on measures to facilitate competition and achieve security of supply in the gas industry. Chairperson, this report was considered by the PGS in February, and it was in August actually, and it was approved by also the ER as part of really the division's efforts to identify the measures that we are proposing should basically be utilized to enhance and facilitate competition and achieve security of supply. Chairperson, in order just to create further awareness around the inquiry itself, we've then developed this brochure, which basically summarizes the key aspects of the inquiry. And in a nutshell, it deals with the purpose of the inquiry, the measures that have been identified in the report or in the inquiry to identify to achieve security of supply, but also including then the policy measures within which those measures can be located, Chairperson. The report has been shared also with the DMRE as part of our advocacy measures with the policymaker. If members just look at the report itself in terms of the brochure, we've identified 11 measures that we are proposing that should be implemented. And of course, there will also be concomitant with that, be an implementation plan to be developed, and that will also be published on the website, just to provide further clarity to stakeholders with regard to the implementation of the measure. Chairperson, the recommendations then, in as far as the brochure is concerned, are on page 5 of Convene. And those are really for approval of the brochure by the PGS and the fact that it will then be made available to stakeholders for inputs at the public platforms that we will be having with those stakeholders. Chairperson, I think that's in a nutshell what we are recommending with regard to that brochure, and then we'll take inputs and enhancements from members. Thanks.
Thank you, Khajo. Members, you've got the submission and the brochure before us. Any questions, comments, enhancements? Mr. Mkhize?
Thanks, Chairperson, and thanks to Mr. Numaro for the presentation. Just got about 5 issues to raise. The delegation of authority, you're talking there to the approval of consultation documents publication on NERSA's website. Yes, you did qualify to say that this is not going to be published on the website, but you're talking to consultation here, and my understanding is that this is not consultation document as such. It's a document that is going to be outlined for information. And the question is, in terms of the metrics, delegation metrics, do we still have, as PGS, the authority to do that? In other words, to approve as outlined under the purpose in paragraph 2. So that is my concern there. And then the next issue is that you're saying that this is an inquiry to identify measures. Why still refer to it as an inquiry instead of talking to the identified measures? If it's going to be a brochure, the issue that there was an inquiry leading to that is more inward facing than actually outward facing. So it could be included maybe in the preamble of the brochure or in the introduction. But the main issue being the identified measures. And then when it comes to under 2.2, I think paragraph 2.2 there, maybe to say other relevant stakeholders, because there could be other stakeholders other than government departments that would play a central role there. And then on when it comes to page 26, I'm not so sure whether are these really of help to prospective players or the public. It will help to talk to the steps to follow in order to participate or indicate to participate in the sector, or maybe measures undertaken by NERSA or DMRE to implement the identified measures. I think that the brochure as such, to me, it comes forth as more inward facing than actually outward facing. For DMRE and us to read the document is helpful, but as to just minimize and go straight to the issues that are required by a member of the public or a prospective player in the sector, there need to be some rephrasing there. I'll leave it at that. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Mr. Mkhize. Mr. Pokula.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, I'm struggling to get to terms with what would happen if we don't have this brochure, because I mean, if I look at the things it's saying, measure one, fast tracking, I mean, that's a DMRE function, and they will do that at their own pace. So I don't even know, when we talk about having an implementation plan, how we would develop an implementation plan when we're not responsible for that. But when you go down the table and look at other things, it really does talk about the things that we should be doing anyway, talking to TNPA and the other things. I'm not sure there's a need or use for this brochure or table. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Mr. Pokula. By the way, I'm also covered, colleagues. Thank you. I had a similar question as you have, Mr. Pokula. Mr. Ngomal, back to you, sir.
Thank you, Chairperson. I think just to maybe start with the inputs and questions raised by Mr. Mkhize. On the first one, the delegation of authority, really, the current delegation of authority does provide for the PGS to consider, an inquiry of this nature, and basically make a decision on it. And I think perhaps it was just an error in terms of between the PGS and ER, who's got the ultimate responsibility with regard to the approval. The approval on this one lies with the PGS. So it is a PGS mandate. On the issue of the second question raised by Mr. Mkhize, and that's specifically, why is it an inquiry? And I think, Mr. Mkhize, we can rephrase just the wording in the brochure. But I think, as you're suggesting, in the reference, perhaps just in the opening part of the brochure, we can then just indicate in the opening that it was based on an inquiry that was conducted by the division, basically. And it was an inquiry because we conducted this inquiry under Section 4D of the Act. Section 4D is basically the one that talks directly to inquiries that the division can conduct from time to time. And that is why we basically termed it an inquiry. And we proceeded to use those words, even in the brochure. But we can rephrase that to basically just only refer to it in the opening. Then with regard to the enhancements on page 26, and I think we can, as Mr. Mkhize is proposing, enhance that to include the steps that will be taken by the DMRE to implement the measures that have been identified. Now, proceeding to Mr. Pokula's issue with regard to whether or not we need the brochure. Our view, Mr. Pokula, is that the brochure will really assist in terms of just providing clarity for stakeholders, because from time to time we do engage stakeholders at various platforms. So our plan is really to use this brochure, just to outline the key aspects of this inquiry and the report that we did, to basically make it much more easier for stakeholders to understand exactly what is it that we've identified, obviously in consultation and subject to further interaction with the policymaker, the DMRE, the measures that have been identified and proposed with regard to facilitation of competition within the gas space, and also security of supply. So we thought that perhaps if we encapsulate these measures into a brochure and basically simplify and summarize them, it would really assist in terms of just making it clearer to our stakeholders as to the measures that have been identified, and of course, indicating to the stakeholders and everyone that those measures are basically subject to further interaction with the DMRE with regard to specific things that are going to be done. Chairperson, I think I hope I have dealt with the significant part of the issues, but that I think I'll allow my colleagues to also come in if there is anything that I would have left out, or if the members maybe still have any further questions or clarity.
Before you allow other people to for further input, Mr. Mkiza, a follow up.
You see, I'm concerned because one of the things that we said was we shouldn't spend a lot of time when maybe we're not going to support the approval. From my side, I think the document needs to be reworked and resent if it's going to be taken as a brochure and really be outward facing, because at the moment it's more inward facing. Some of the things are just for us to do. Are they really of concern to a member of the public as such? Also talk to the issue that Mr. Pugula highlighted, to say what value is this going to give to a member of the public or a prospective player in this sector. If they can be able to polish up that aspect, understand that when a person is picking up a brochure, you just want to just browse through and get to the issues that are of interest. And I don't think that talking to an inquiry research in terms of what we've done, yes, pasting a report on our website is one thing. Having a brochure that we going to then distribute in exhibitions, etc., is another issue. And I think that Mr. Charles Lebela and them should also weigh in heavily on the issue of a brochure. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mkiza. I think you've provided guidance here, which is an issue that says, it's one thing for us to deliberate and go around in circles, but if the feeling is, which is what I'm getting, Mr. Numalo, is one that simply says, firstly, we need to make corrections. For instance, in terms of that authority, clearly, perhaps it was a wrong clause that was quoted, but it is not applicable to this particular to this brochure, because it's not a publication and it's not something on our website. So it's certainly a misquote. But secondly, the issues raised by Mr. Mkiza about inward focus, and also I think the issues raised by both Mr. Pukula and as indicated, I also had the same feeling. I'm not quite convinced about what you are trying to achieve with this. As Mr. Pula put it very nicely, what happens if we don't have this brochure? I think for me, Mr. Numalo, it's quite clear, and I'll put it to the members, but it's quite clear that members would want to say, please take it back, rework it, reposition it properly, perhaps not as an inquiry, but as a brochure, and as indicating the identified measures rather than indicating it as an inquiry. Yes, maybe the findings or the measures emerged from the inquiry. So that is the sense I'm getting, Mr. Nimalo, in terms of trying to summarize. So I don't know if you'd want to respond to that first before I actually put it to the members to see whether I've summarized the concerns properly for the members and to ask you to actually rework the document. Would you want to say something before I put it to members?
No, thank you, Chairperson. I think we can only take the members' guidance, really, with regard to the way forward. And I think as members have indicated in their wisdom that there are things that need to be reworked on the document. We can then take the document back and maybe just rework on it and then resubmit. Once everything else that the members have provided as inputs has been incorporated. But we take the guidance.
All right, thank you. So members, by show of hands, would you agree with the summary that I've provided and the guidance that they need to go back and reposition this document? Thank you, Madam Bongose. Thank you, Mr. Bukula. Thank you, Mr. Mkhize. Mr. Numalo, yes, so that's the guidance from members. Reposition it, please. And yes, Mr. Bukula, still the hand is still up, lingering. Thank you. All right, let's move on to agenda item number 6. Mr. Numalo.
Thank you, Chairperson. On item number 6, really what we are presenting here is a request that we received from the DMRE. Really, essentially for publication of the Henry Hub prices. Members will be aware that currently we are publishing maximum gas energy prices on a monthly basis, as again based on a request that we received previously from the DMRE and the IPP office. So last year in November, we did receive a second request or another request from the DMRE, basically that we should consider also including the Henry Hub index in the monthly publications that we do from time to time. And Chairperson, we've considered the request, and the information regarding the Henry Hub prices is available on sources that we are already using within the division for information with regard to maximum gas energy prices. So it will not present any challenges for us to basically add the element of the Henry Hub prices onto the monthly publications that we are currently doing. So it's something that we can do. But in terms of its essence, in terms of why this request was made, the IPP office has basically recently published, together with the DMRE, a 3,000 megawatts gas-fired independent power producers program that will be subject to a bidding process by stakeholders. So some stakeholders may actually wish to use the Henry Hub prices in the indexation of their fuel price. So the publication of the Henry Hub index will really be very, very useful for that purpose. But we have considered the request. It's something that should not present any challenges, as it is something that we're already doing. We can just add this element in terms of this additional request that has been made by the DMRE. Chairperson, so the matter is here. Basically, we just brought it here for the PGS to note the request that we've received from the DMRE, and to also approve that henceforward, and then going forward, we can start publishing the Henry Hub as part of our monthly publications in the maximum gas energy prices that we publish. Chairperson, that is what we are recommending on this one. The recommendations are on page 38. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Ngumalo. Members, there is the submission before us. Any questions, clarity, guidance? Mr. Mkhize?
Thanks, Chairperson, and thanks, Mr. Mumalo, for the presentation. In essence, I don't have a problem with the inclusion of the publication of the Henry Hub prices monthly. So I'm supportive of the gist of the submission. Just again on the issue of authority, the clause quoted there does not fit neat into this submission, and therefore it needs to be qualified so that it does fit or or go to a clause that specifically talks to such an inclusion, because there is no approval of prices here or amendment as such, but an inclusion of what we are already publishing on the website, but to say let it be published together with the publishing of the maximum gas energy price. That is my understanding, unless I missed it somewhere. And then on under 4.8, just a small things, some few things there. 4.8, is it not March 2023 that you're referring to here? And then if there was this approval, we need to also state that it is now currently the price, the practice. To just go ahead and state that it is currently the practice, so that you are clear that yes, this change has been effected under 4.8. And then under 4.10, I think the department you're referring there is still the DMRE. So if you can have the capital letter D to indicate that it's not a department within ourselves, or GLC or whoever, or GPT, that it clearly states that the IPPON itself being the department. And here you talk of Henry Hub bidders. If you can just correct that, there are a lot of things that are not clear in that 4.10. Even the last sentence under 4.10, if that's the former sentence holds, then why do you need to have the second sentence, which is like there's a choice? I'm a bit confused by that. If you can look at the 4.10, and then that information under 4.12, if you can indicate, maybe include the URL for the website to indicate that clearly it's a NERSA website, that will also help. And under 4.13, as experts in the space, I think that we should not necessarily say that it appears that the Henry Hub is used for long-term contracts. Let us kind of speak with authority there and state if it is indeed used as such. For me, I think those are just some small things to include, but other than that, I'm not averse to the inclusion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mkhize. Mr. Pokolo?
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I don't see why we would be discussing this. We don't manufacture or add to the Henry Hub or anything. All we need to do is, in whatever report that we are doing, we just reference the website as we have done in 411. I don't see the rationale of us now having to publish. We do nothing to that. So if there's a mistake there, we are going to just carry on that mistake. And we don't have to take that into our hands. So in whatever we are publishing, we can reference, in whatever we're already publishing, we can just reference the website as they have their own 411. There's no need for us to approve any of this. Thank you, Chair. I don't support it.
Thank you, Mr. Pokola. Mr. Ngumalo, can I just raise I had one concern, and I guess, as Mr. Pokola is indicating, in terms of 411, if it's something that is generally available, I was a bit concerned that I was asking, if this information, if we are asked to publish this information or to include this Henry Hub price, is it because DMRE can't itself access it directly as we can? But if they can't, is it because we have, like for instance, in terms of plats, have we bought the actual rights, and therefore the question that I was asking is that would we then have the right to actually distribute that? Would we not be in breach of the publication rights of whoever owns that information that will be selling it? But if it's information, as Mr. Pukula is indicating, which is already as indicated under paragraph 411, why are we making a decision? Thank you. Mr. Mkiza, if we can add again.
Yes, sorry. I just wanted to state that in my question right at the beginning, in terms of the delegation, I was hoping that also in some way in responding, they will also touch on the issue to say, really, truly speaking, should we be even entertaining this, or should it be done elsewhere? Because to include it, as I said, to avail information, I don't have a problem with that in principle. Yeah. So to include that, should it really come to this committee for inclusion, or should there be just a line that includes that and shows where the link is? For me, I'm not. That's why I wanted to know if really should it come to us here when I'm talking to the issue of delegation, other than just the clause being used. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mkiza. I was going to also add basically on the issue that you had raised around the clause, because the clause that is quoted there seems to say we are not, we can only recommend. That clause is about recommending to ER. And yet the decision that is sought is that we're supposed to approve. So it doesn't seem to be alignment. So if we can address those issues first, Mr. Lima.
Thank you, Chairperson. Maybe just to start with the inputs on issues raised by Mr. Mkiza, I think most of them really are enhancements. But with regard to the clause on the delegation matrix, and I think we can just correct that to indicate that or rather point to the correct clause. Basically, the clause that should be pointed to here is the one that deals with the PGS basically having to consider the matter itself. And I think, in reference to that, we can just maybe make an enhancement in that paragraph there. The second one was on paragraph 4.8. And I think we can just indicate, just as an enhancement again, that currently we are publishing specifically the JKM as well as the oil index prices. And the request that we're already bringing before the PGS was to, the PGS to note the request that has been made with regard to inclusion of the Henry Hub. But currently the practice is ready to publish the JKM as well as the oil index prices. And then on the department reference in 4.10, Mr. Mkiza, I think we can just correct that again. It was just an error. And the same with 413 or 4.13. We can just revise that paragraph to basically indicate the correct approach that we'll be taking with regard to the way forward on that paragraph. Chairperson, I think just to deal substantially with the issue that Mr. Pukula is raising with regard to whether we can simply reference the information regarding the Henry Hub. We thought about that before bringing the matter to the subcommittee. It is possible that we can simply just reference that information without bringing the matter to this PGS. But then for the purpose of just making sure that the PGS is aware about the request that has been made by the DMRE, we thought it prudent to bring the matter here so that the PGS can at least, if not approving, but at least be aware that the DMRE has made this particular request, and that going forward, the PGS can then basically, give us its blessings with regard to the inclusion of the Handle Hub, either as a reference or as just pointing the DMRE and the relevant of the stakeholders to the website where they can find this information. But we can do that, Chairperson. But then we just felt that perhaps it would be, prudent for us to also bring the matter here so that the PGS can be aware about the request that has been made. Chairperson, I think I hope I have dealt with all the issues that the members have raised. Thanks.
Okay. In summary, Mr. Ngomolo, are you saying that, in fact, we don't own the information, we don't generate the information, so there's no reason for us to be able to, there's no reason for us to actually approve anything, correct?
Yes,
this was just for us to note.
Yes, it was just really we thought that it would be useful for us to bring it here so that the PGS can note and be aware about the request that has been made.
All right, members. So the recommendation then changes. The report is just for us to note that the actual request made by the DMRE. By show of hands, members, can we do that? Just note that. There is no approval that needs to be made. Thank you, Mr. Pokula. Thank you, Madam Pongose. Thank you, Mr. Mkize. The request by DMRE is so noted, Mr. Ngomalo. If we can then deal with item 7 for us, please.
Thank you, Chairperson. I'll bring in Mr. Njezula. Item 7 was really a round robin that we had circulated based on an application by Social Gas for its maximum price for the year of the period 1st July 2024 until 30 June 2025. It was a preliminary assessment that we conducted. Then it appears that the round robin was not or did not get to the point of actually being signed off by all the members, and hence it's coming here for consideration by the PGS. I'll let Mr. Njezula to deal with that, Chairperson, in terms of just the key issues in the preliminary assessment.
Okay, Mr. Njezula, take it as read and just highlight the issues that we want the members to actually consider. Thanks.
Thank you, Chair. I'll take the submission as read. The purpose of the submission is to note this the preliminary assessment of Sasol's maximum price application for the period July 2024 until June 2025, and also to approve the publication of the discussion document, which is attached to as Annexure A with all the confidential information withheld. Now, Chair, the application was received on the 4th of December, and Sasol is applying for a maximum price using the cost plus principle as set out in the methodology of the 2023 methodology. With that approval, they are also requesting NERSA to approve quarterly adjustment of the maximum price for the period. And also, they also will be implementing a minimum 5% discount on the maximum price itself. Subsequent to the approval, what is also I'd like to for the members to also have a look at is the table 1, which encompasses all the components of the maximum price and the maximum price that is being applied for. That's in table 1. Subsequent to the application, NERSA has done its own assessment, and basically the difference between the NERSA and the SASOL application was almost 1.9%. This was mainly driven by the profit component, as the applicant had added another company that they believed was more suited. However, the difference was within line in terms of not more than 10%. I think, Chair, with that said, the recommendations are on number 13. So we request the subcommittee to note the preliminary assessment and also to approve the publication of the discussion document as an HIA. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Josula, I guess, Mr. Numalo, can I just, before I get the members to comment, please do check, Master Peter, I also didn't see this, but please do check your delegation, your authority. Seemingly, the team keeps quoting an incorrect one. For instance, this is not a decision yet on the tariff, but rather it's a publication of a consultation document, but the authority quoted that does not reflect that. Anyway, Mr. Members, you've got a document before us for commenting. It's actually, I guess, it's not a decision that is on the tariffs yet or on the prices yet, but rather it's a consultation to approve the consultation. Any comments, members? Questions? Doesn't seem like there are any. Can I just ask one question, Mr. Numala? And again, maybe just for clarity on my side, I've always been wondering about this issue. There is an aid memoir that we consider before the actual public hearing. Why do we have to note the preliminary assessment? Is there any reason? Just for my information. Thanks.
Thanks, Chairperson. The preliminary assessment basically has got two components or two aspects to it. Usually, when we conduct a preliminary assessment, is to just bring the matter to the attention of the PGS in terms of the first part of an assessment of a maximum price application. And the outcome of that, of course, that they then becomes subject to also requesting the PGS to give us approval to publish the actual discussion document. So that's in essence why we request the preliminary assessment to be considered first in terms of for purpose of noting by the PGS, but also for the purpose of then just granting us that go ahead to publish the actual discussion document. So this one, Chairperson, was, as we indicated, done by round robin. And unfortunately, it does appear that the round robin did not get to the point of actually being signed off by members as was intended. With regard to just the noting and the approval of the publication of the preliminary. But that's in essence what the purpose of the preliminary discussion or preliminary report is all about.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ngomalo. I won't pursue the issue further because I would have thought that if you do the preliminary assessment, then at least include it in the consultation paper. But I'm not going to pursue it further. Members, the decision that you sought from us is paragraph 13. In essence, the PGS is asked to note the preliminary assessment, but then to approve the publication of the discussion document. That is what is asked of us, members, by show of hands, if we can approve that. Thank you, Mr. Mkize, thank you, Mr. Pukula, and thank you, Madam Pumas. You've got your decision, Mr. Ngomalo. If you can take us to item 8, please. And again, please, can we take it as read? So it's just highlights of what has been, of what is sought from members.
Thank you, Chairperson. Item 8, I think we'll take it as read. In the interest of time, again, we'll just quickly summarize what the report is all about. Essentially, this is basically an update of the progress that was made in the third quarter with regard to the construction of licensed activities. And there were 2 activities or projects that were underway in this period. One was for the construction of a transmission.
Mr. Ngomalo, are you talking about 8 or 9? Because that, I guess, the numbering on convene 8 is the report on the metering audits, at least on convene.
Yeah, I think it appears that there was maybe just confusion, maybe just the incorrect referencing of the items on convene as opposed to on board pair, Chairperson. But I think maybe let me just get off convene and maybe try and use the board pad.
Please use convene because we are all on convene. So what I'm saying is on convene, item 8 is a report on metering audits and inspections conducted on the ROMCO pipeline. It's not a construction report. The construction report is item 9.
All right, I think maybe let me step off that and then just use my different agenda to deal with the ROMCO audit inspection report. Chairperson, that basically is a report or the report on ROMCO basically relates to an annual audit that we conduct every year on the Mozambican as well as the South African side of the border. Essentially, this time around, we conducted these audits in September, starting in Mozambique, starting from the 14th to the 21st of September 2023. And we proceeded to the SA side of the border on the 26th to 28th September 2023. Basically, these audits are conducted by a joint team of inspectors from both sides, with the result that the findings that are made with regard to each side are then pursued by the team on each side with regard to implementation and enforcement. Chairperson, we've articulated the findings that were made with regard to this particular audits that were conducted on the ROMCO pipeline. And those are captured in the report under Table 1 under Annexure A1 in relation to the observations that were made on the SA side of the border. And most of them really relate to inadequate or poor maintenance of the facilities inspected, and some of the facilities that were not properly accredited. Then on the Mozambican side, the findings that were made are basically detailed in Appendix 4, and those are related to basically mainly pertain to non-compliance with process requirements on that side of the inspections with regard to processes that were followed. So basically, Chairperson, in terms of the recommendations, and these are on page 14, the recommendations are for noting of the report in relation to the findings that were made on the Mozambican side with regard to the audits that were conducted that side, but also the findings that were made on the South African side, and basically the manner in which those findings are going to then be followed up on both sides with regard to just ensuring that there's proper enforcement and implementation. Chairperson, I think I'll leave it at that. The recommendations are on page 14.
Members, the report is here for us for noting. Any questions of clarity, enhancements? Thank you, Madam Pungas.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thanks, Mr. Ngumalo, for the presentation. The report is quite detailed, but I think my main concern really is, some of the findings that were made during the actual audit and inspection, point to carelessness and recklessness, like, where equipment is exposed and is not insulated or, covered up as it is requirement, because as is the requirement, because how it is used has an impact on the usage if it gives reliable results and stuff like that. That points to recklessness or even carelessness. And then also on issues of non-accredited facilities that belong to the licensee. That's an issue of serious concern, because I don't understand how that happens. It's either there's lack of attention to detail in how they do things, or they just do not care. Because how can you have a whole facility operating that is standing there to conduct certain things, but then it's not accredited? And then issues of people who are supposed to be doing calibrations, but for some reason the machine is set at a particular figure, and then they use a different point to calibrate. Obviously the results will be unreliable. So those were things that were concerning for me. And also, it says that we can't mention everything in greater detail, because I think it seems to have very sensitive information as well. But I think there is a need really for us to put stringent measures to say the remedial factors or remedial measures should be put in place quick, as soon as possible, and all things that were found to be irregular, because other issues that we're finding are issues of improvement, but others are really issues of concern on the licensee. Thanks. Those are my comments. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Madam. Mr. Mkhize.
Thanks, Chairperson, and Mr. Ngumalo, thanks for the presentation. I'm happy to note, but I must highlight that some of the things, like, I won't repeat what my colleague has already said, but when it comes to accreditation, for example, I think the important thing is getting the date of when they commit to have that accreditation, instead of just talking to a project schedule and all of that. The key thing is, when will they get accredited? And that is important, to be very clear. And I think that there should be also feedback to the policymakers, because when it comes to pipe gas in particular, there was this not to be heavy-handed when it comes to regulation, but as you learn certain things, it must then feedback. If some of the I would say the challenges are due can be deemed to be due to negligence or the failure to operate optimally, then there could be a need to then have some kind of sanctions when something has been observed there and then, like when you will have spot fine when driving, and you find that maybe there are no the tires are worn out. I'm saying we should not just look at this only. We should also then look and say, how do we improve the regulation or overall in terms of being effective and efficient? And I think that reading the report, it will also help that where there are abbreviations and at first mentioned they are written in full. It just helps in terms of the understanding. These are just an enhancement. I'm not expecting a response therefrom. And then the other one is that with regard to the regulations, I think it's page 3. Yeah. With regard to regulations and the laws on the Mozambican side, are we fully understanding them? Do we have the English versions thereof? And how are we harmonized to look at that? Because I remember even way back in 2008, etc., there was this whole issue of saying, let's harmonize with our neighbors so that we can even walk through their systems and they can do the same with us, so there can be proper regional integration. So just that. And to also indicate that when the commission last met, because it is important also for the commission to set the tone in terms of continued cooperation and as well as monitoring and enforcement throughout, And then I think it's page 83, written differently here, where I think it's 4.2, where you talk that they are monitoring the 120 million gigajoules. From my side, I think that we are monitoring the supply thereof and not it per se. If you can just correct that. Yeah, and I think, yeah, in writing, seeking to get the reader to understand, like under 7.2.1b, that performing a temperature loop check due to defective calibration path, to write it in a more simplified manner for the reader to understand what in essence the challenge is. But those are just enhancements, as I've indicated. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mkhize. Mr. Nwalo, I've got a question of clarity first, which I'm going to ask, which is on paragraph 14.1. I don't understand. Maybe just indicate to me what do you mean by that there, 14.1, and why is it included in this report, number 2? But I think overall, I must admit, maybe you can assist me here. I am honestly, as I was reading this, I was struggling with it. I know that in terms of there's an agreement between the agreement which is included, which is annexed in the Gas Act, which I can understand, and I guess a lot of it for me say our mandate is really about the actual volumetric issues. Now, the question I have in my head is there are lots of issues here, especially when we talk to gas chromatography, which I assume is about. That's about it's really about the chemistry of the gas. It's about its purity levels and all basically things that are related to the quality of the gas. The question that keeps cropping in my head, maybe you can assist me with here. Do we have a mandate in terms of quality? I can understand the volume, but do we have the mandate? I can also understand the metrology part, but again, that for me is something that's governed by the Standards Act. Now, I'm just issue here is about. I guess the question I'm asking are really issues that we are monitoring here. Do we have a mandate to do that? A legal mandate to do that? And are we not maybe transversing and going into other people's domains? Except, of course, I can understand the temperature part, because gas is about compensation in terms of temperature. I can understand that orifice metering that we are talking about, because that's about volume flow. But gas chromatography, there are lots of quality issues that do we have a mandate to do that? If so, if something is found to be off spec, are we the parties that can be sued for it, for not actually giving effect properly to the quality of gas? Is that our mandate? Thanks. If you can assist us with those questions. And some of them, remember, they are it's just enhancements, Mr. Kumar.
Thank you, Chairperson. I think just to maybe start with the issues raised by Madam Pungoso. It's really essentially on the measures that need to be enforced with regard to just ensuring that the findings are corrected. But I want to deal specifically with the issue of accreditation. That is something that we've raised in the past, and in fact, it happens to be work in progress because we've brought it to the attention of the licensee, the fact that they really need to have equipment that is properly accredited. In the past, what they used to basically put forward as an argument is that the accreditation of these facilities has to happen in Europe, and that they were currently engaged in processes that basically were very tedious to acquire that accreditation on that side of things. But then it is possible to basically put a deadline, and I think I quite like the idea that Mr. Mkhize is bringing into the picture to say, and we've done that already. We've given them basically a period of about 6 months to ensure that all this equipment that has not been accredited is properly accredited within that period, so that going forward we can deal once and for all with this issue of, around accreditation of the or their non-accredited equipment. Proceeding to the inputs that are provided by Mr. Mkhize, and I think I've already dealt with the first one, that in as far as accreditation is concerned, we'll also then bring it to, as part of our advocacy measures, bring it to the attention of the DMRE with regard to improvements in the regulations in particular, just to ensure that it's dealt with there. Now, with regard to the harmonization of processes on both sides, Mr. Mkhize, it's something that we are currently basically in the process of doing. Having started that process when the commission used to sit, but it's an ongoing process that is currently ongoing. It's just that the commission no longer sits as regularly as it used to in the past. But that process of harmonizing the regulations on both sides is actually work in progress. It's currently ongoing. And lastly, the monitoring, and I think this was just a slight enhancement that you proposed. On monitoring, we'll just enhance that paragraph, paragraph 5, just to indicate that going forward, there will be monitoring of these facilities on both sides. Now, on the issue of 14.1, Mr. Kumete, now I'm dealing with the inputs that you have raised, Chairperson. On 14.1, really what we are saying is that the potential implication, I think this is a standard, again, caption in the submission, where we are required to indicate what would happen if the matter is not considered by the PGS by a certain date. But I think the enhancements that we can make there is to basically, so that we are not alarmist with regard to that paragraph, we can enhance it and just indicate that what we were essentially trying to cover there is that the matter must be considered by the PGS, so that the PGS, has noted the progress of the report going forward. Now, with regard to the mandate on the gas chromatograph, You know, when we issue these licenses, we issue them subject to license conditions. And one of those conditions, and this is quite important, one of those license conditions is one that basically refers to particular standards that are applicable to the manner in which these license operations are going to be conducted, such as the SB standards and other applicable standards. And it is really within those standards that this issue of the gas chromatograph is contained. And that being part of the license conditions, then that we've imposed, then that gives us the mandate to basically enforce with regard to ensuring that there is proper implementation of those license conditions and proper observance of the parameters that we set out in the license conditions. So we basically are using those license conditions as a mandate, or basically to, or as a basis for us to make these follow-ups on findings and corrective measures that then need to be made with regard to audits and compliance inspections. Chairperson, I think I've tried to, and I hope I've dealt with all the issues that the members have raised. Thanks.
Thanks, Mr. Ngumalo. I think you have. I mean, let me just, I'll put this report to the members for consideration. It's actually here for noting. But I think for me, I think the question, I do want to clarify my issue around the mandate. That, you know, my concern is that sometimes we put things, we may take on upon ourselves mandates of other departments, maybe things that we may not be capable of actually fulfilling. That in the event that now that we've taken it upon ourselves and made it a condition of license, for instance, then we must therefore have the capacity to actually deal with it and do something about it in the event something once goes haywire. And it's that exposure, I think, really, that simply says, now that you are saying this is in your mandate, can you give effect to it? What if something goes wrong? And what can you do to actually fix it? So, but as you say, it's in the license conditions, which I understand. But that is my concern. So the question is, do we have the capacity to actually deal with it? Anyway, members, the recommendation is on paragraph 17, and this report is here for noting. Firstly, just to 17.1.1 is to note the report on the metering and compliance audit inspection conducted on ROMCO from the 13th to the 14th, and then from the 18th to the 22nd of September 2023 in Mozambique, and from 26 to 28 in South Africa, and associated findings. And to also note the fiscal metering and compliance audit report and on the ROMCO facilities in South Africa, and also the metering fiscal metering audit reports on ROMCO, MGC, and SASO facilities in Mozambique. Members, by show of hands, can we note the report? Thank you, Madam Pungasa. Thank you, Mr. Mkiza. Thank you, Mr. Pukula. Mr. Ngumalo, your report is so noted. If we can now move to the report that we are presenting, item 7, which is, it's indicating as item 7 here, but it's item 9. If we can proceed with that, please.
Thank you, Chairperson. I think
apologies first, Mr. Pukula. Is it a lingering hand? An old hand. Thanks.
Apologies, Chair.
Okay, thank you. It's an old hand. Please proceed, Mr. Ngumalo.
Thank you, Chairperson. Just quickly, in a nutshell, what we are presenting with regard to this item really is a report of construction, or rather progress made in the construction of license activities. Chairperson, as I was indicating earlier on, that we had 2 projects that were really underway in this period, which is the third quarter. One was for construction of a transmission facility, and the other one was for construction of a distribution facility, and both of them happen to be in the same area in Alroad, which is in the Ekurhuleni metropolitan municipality. Chairperson, the other one the distribution, construction of a distribution facility is about 90% complete. And what we've also noted is, which is quite commendable, is progress that is being made by the licensee with regard to the use of previously disadvantaged individuals in the construction of these projects. It's something that was never there in the past, and I think it is a notable improvement that has been brought in based on concerns that we've raised, basically to ensure that there is proper use of at least opportunities provided for those kind of people in the construction of these license activities. Chairperson, Table 1 then details the companies that have been involved in this construction project. And lastly, the report also deals with feedback that we received from car powerships with regard to their projects in Saldanha, Richards Bay, as well as the Port of Nimka. And the recommendations are on page 11, basically for construction and a noting of the construction progress report for the third quarter. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Ngumalo. Members, the report is here for noting. Any questions, comments, enhancements? Mr. Ngumalo, it seems like your report is pretty clear. So members, as indicated, the actual recommendation is on paragraph 14 on page 11 of 23. Page 7 of 23, yes. It is recommended that the pipeline, the PGS, note the construction report, the progress report for the third quarter for the financial year 23-24, and that there are no new construction projects that are undertaken in the third quarter. By show of hands, members, can we note? Thank you, Mr. Pukula. Thank you, Madam Bungose. Mr. Mkiza, happy to note. Thank you, Mr. Mkiza. I'm also happy to note. If we can then move on to the third quarter, item 10.
Thank you, Chairperson. On item 10, really what we are presenting is the report of compliance inspections that were conducted in the third quarter. And those are conducted on two facilities in the main. The facility owned by Transnet Pipeline, which basically traverses an area from Mpumalanga to KZN, as well as the other facility owned by Eskom in the Majuba or in the Amersfoort district in Mpumalanga. Chairperson, I think we'll take the submission as read, but in a nutshell, basically in terms of the observations and findings, and those are detailed in table 1 of the report. Most of the findings really related to poor maintenance of the facility. And I think this is something that is typically same as what we discussed in the other report, where there's corrosion of some of the facilities, rust, there's water leak on some of the facilities. And we've brought these matters to the attention of the licensees with regard to the remedial action in terms of improvements and implementation of corrective measures, Chairperson. Now, the other observation that we made with regard to the Eskom plant is that basically that has been decommissioned, and in the decommissioning process, the proper procedures were followed with regard to ensuring that the area is properly rehabilitated, and there is no major concerns that were raised with regard to that. Chairperson, the recommendations are on page 21, paragraph 14, and really this pertain to the noting of the report of inspections that we conducted in the third quarter on the two facilities and the observations that we made with regard to the findings. Chairperson, I think that is the recommendations on page 21. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Ngumalo. Members, the recommendation is indicated on page 21, but are there any questions of clarity? Issues that need to be enhanced? Madam Pungose?
Just a comment from me, Chairperson, one comment. I just want to get just assurance from the team that, where there's remedial action that needs to be done, there are specific days by when it needs to be done. Yeah, just to make sure that we can keep track on all these areas of non-compliance and areas of concern that they will be addressed at some point. Thanks.
Thank you, Madam. Mr. Pukula?
Thank you, Mr. Commander. I think on 6.25 to 6.27, I just want to have an understanding. This aerial inspection, was this an aerial inspection that was arranged and conducted by the licensee, or was this an aerial inspection that was arranged and paid for by NASA? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pukula. Mr. Mkhize?
Thanks, Chairperson. I would just like to note just a few things. One is a need to highlight other stakeholders that we cooperating with. I think in the same vein, I think it's also linked to what Mr. Pukula has alluded to. And also those that we should be collaborating with. Sometimes it's a question of expertise. In other cases, it's a matter of mandates. And I think it is important that we highlight that and we strive to optimize collaboration. And then two, it will assist to make sure that when we're writing, we separate what we observed vis-a-vis what we were told. I was looking at the UCG, the underground combustion gas plant. For me, is that when you say something is 300 meters deep, and you are told, it should be very clear because you are conducting an inspection, or you are doing an audit, and therefore separate, in terms of the language, you separate what you have observed from what you are told. And then the other thing is, it will assist also to indicate past findings and current findings in order to note findings that have been addressed emanating from the past, as well as repeat findings with new findings then coming out clearly. And on under 6.29, where you're talking of washaways and erosion, I think you are talking about the effects, but if you read, these are not effects, they are actually definitions. And this portion, I would rather take it right at the beginning of the report, because when someone reads and these things have not been explained, might not have a proper understanding as to what really you are talking about. So if you can be able just to move it to the front, and then note them as definitions as such. And then the other issue is that you're talking of a petrol pipeline, which is actually a liquid fuels pipeline, because it's petrol and diesel, and in some instances it can also take a jet fuel. So if you can just note it as such, and I think also it's important the collaboration between gas and petrol pipelines in this regard. The other issue, I think the other issue concerning the classification, I think is already noted. That's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mkhize. Madam Pungose? Is it a second? Is it lingering hand?
Oh, yes, thank you. Thank you very much, Chairperson. Just the last one really from me. What I wanted to just also mention to the team to say that, in light of the prevalence of theft of fuel, from the pipelines, I mean, there is, like, for instance, an instance, I don't know on what page, on table 2, under table 2, where a new graveyard has just been established right near a pipeline, to say that what measures are being put in place then to ensure that that particular pipeline is secure, and also its surrounds, because I mean, having infrastructure that have a high foot traffic, in the area right near the pipeline might be an issue of concern, especially because in those areas, that's where actually the theft of fuel happens. So most people will be aware that there is a pipeline running under here or over here or whatever. So there should be some security measures put in place. Thanks. Additional security measures. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam. Mr. Ngomalo, response?
Thank you, Chairperson. Maybe just to commence with the issues that Ms. Mbongose kicked off with. Yes, specifically, there are, or there is a date that we normally set with regard to remedial action. And Ms. Mbongose, that is important because each and every finding that is made basically needs to be addressed by a specific date. And the time that then gets taken by the licensee with regard to those remedial measures is relative to the nature of the finding that has been made and the time that will be required. For instance, some of the corrective measures might include construction of certain facilities, which might take time and basically be subject to other processes. But generally, what we normally do is to put specific deadlines with regard to remedial action that needs to be taken around these findings, so that for follow-up purposes as well, it can be easier for enforcement. Now, proceeding to the issue that has been raised by Mr. Bukula with regard to the area inspection. Usually what happens, Mr. Bukula, is that the area inspections are conducted by NESA's team together with the licensee, because each and every inspection is conducted by the joint team or the team jointly. So it was an area inspection that was conducted by the licensee together with the NESA team, but it was paid for by the licensee. NESA does not pay for that area inspection. But it's something that basically is part of the requirements, again, for the licenses to ensure that there's proper maintenance of their facilities, but also compliance with the license conditions, and including the associated costs with that. So it's usually paid for by the licensee, but then the NESA team does participate in that process. With regard to the issues raised by Mr. Mkhize, and I think the emphasis there was really just to emphasize on the collaboration. And I think it's something that we make an effort to do from time to time. And we will enhance the submission just to indicate the entities or organizations that we collaborate with from time to time in the enforcement of remedial measures. But also then we will ensure that with regard to the findings, we effect the necessary enhancements that have been made by the members, including the repositioning of the paragraph that Mr. Mkhize referred to. That we're going to take to the definitions column and at the beginning of the report. Now, lastly, to get back to the issue that Ms. Mbongose has just raised with regard to the measures that need to be put in place to secure the pipelines. The current measures that are currently used by the licensees to secure these pipelines is basically what they call pipeline markers. And those pipeline markers basically are required to be visible above ground to point to areas where there is the existence of a pipeline underground. And as part of the maintenance processes going forward, the requirement is that those pipeline markers always have to be there. But, should it happen that any construction needs to be done or activity needs to be done by the community, they are required to basically get specific approval prior to starting with any of those activities from the licensee before they can start with those activities, so that the licensee can then indicate to them that you cannot come into this area specifically because there is a pipeline underground, and therefore you cannot basically come in and erect a structure or basically put up an operation above ground, because then that might pose danger to the pipeline that is underground. In addition to basically the presence of those pipeline markers that are required to be, erected as part of the license conditions. Chairperson, I think, that in a nutshell, the responses to the questions that members have raised. Thanks.
Thank you. Members, with those with the enhancements so indicated, can we note the report? The actual. It's. I'm not sure if I should read this into the record, but let me just do that. That we are requested to actually. Okay, there is a decision. Mr. Mkiza noted. Mr. Mpungose, we are noting. Mr. Pukula, happy to note. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Pukula. I think just to read it to the record, what we are noting the third quarter report on the Transnet pipeline's compliance with license conditions issued to it to operate for the operation of the gas transmission facility from Secunda to Durban. And we're noting a letter of preliminary non-compliance with the condition 12.1 and condition 15.2 of the issued license. And we note a compliance report with the registration conditions and provisions of the pipe gas regulations in the gas production operations of Eskom Holdings Majuba Underground Gas Coal Gasification Demonstration Plant in Amersfoort, district in Mpumalanga Province. Thank you, Mr. Numalo. We can now move on to item number 11. Now, item number 11 here is the one that is referred. It's referred as item 11, but that's the one that has been moved. So can I'm correct that Mr. Nuwan. I know it said it's item. It was indicated as item 12 when we started, but it's actually item 11. Correct? We're going to discuss that in.
That's correct, Mr. Committee.
Correct. We're going to discuss that in governance and under governance, and we've requested that you remove item 12, Mr. Numala. Correct?
That's correct, Chairperson.
What is referred as item 12. Okay. And therefore, we can now just go to item 13. It's just, and I'm not. I think I should just, because it's just a confirmation of a round robin. Just read that for the record. That item 13 is a confirmation of a round robin, and members can then vote on this. Confirmation of a round robin resolution, approval for a preliminary assessment of the Romco Pty Limited application for the multi-year transmission tariff for GTA 3 volumes for period 1st of July to the 1st of July. I assume it's 1st of July 2024. Mr. Nomalo, if we can confirm that, it is 2024, correct? To the 30th of June 2026.
That's correct, Chairperson.
Okay, thank you. This serves to confirm that the pipe gas subcommittee has, in terms of section 8.9892 of the NESA Act, approved the above stated round robin resolution. Is it in terms of 8.9? Sounds a bit incorrect, but anyway, has approved the above stated round robin, and the following members voted: Mr. Mkiza, Ms. Masetti, Mr. Kumede, and Advocate Sitole. Members, can we confirm this round robin? By show of hands. This round robin approval. Thank you, Mr. Mkhize. Thank you, Mr. Pukula. Thank you, Madam Pongos. I also vote in support. Thank you. That then concludes, if I'm correct, it concludes all the matters that we are going to deal with. Mr. Dlamini?
Thank you, Mr. Kumete. I do notice that Mr. Ngumalo withdrew item E, the volume balance, which is item 12, but we do have the volume balance for November, as an including the submissions. If you are on convene, is agenda item 12.
I think that's really was the confusion for me, because there is an item on convene. So when it was withdrawn,
Yes.
I was not sure whether Mr. Ngumalo, were you withdrawing the item that is already published, or you were drawing an item that was not published, because there is a document here.
The person, I think
what he was withdrawing, sir.
Yeah, maybe just to assist quickly, Mr. Dlamini, thanks. I think what we were withdrawing is, if you look at the convene, the agenda on convene, I think it incorrectly made reference to the same item, the monthly volume balance, under item number 11, as well as item number 13. And I think it could be that maybe just the referencing is gone. But essentially what we were withdrawing is the item that was not published. So it's not a published item.
All right. No, thanks. Can I then take members back to that item? Seemingly there was, because I was a bit surprised about the request, but nonetheless, the item has been published. That the actual volume balance for November. So members, if you can indulge me, if we can go back to that issue and deal with that, and hand it back to you, Mr. Ngumalo, to deal. So it's the Sasol gas monthly gas volume balance report for November 2023.
That is correct, Chairperson. And I think just to maybe summarize that quickly, this report deals with or details the volumes that were supplied from the other side to South Africa for the month of November, as we do, from time to time on a monthly basis. Basically, Chairperson, the report then also includes, which is perhaps most important, the volumes that were off-taken by two entities that started importing the gas in the past 2 years. And those are detailed basically on the table, and I think we're not going to mention names because those are confidential. But 10%, the threshold is within the acceptable limit of 1%. So there is nothing really that we've made that is of concern with regard to observations. And the recommendations on this one are on page 15. And that really relates to the noting of the volume balance of the volumes that were supplied from Mozambique to South Africa for the month of November. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you. Members, we are here to requested to note the volume balance as indicated on paragraph 14. That's items 1 to 6. But without making mention of the names themselves, of the names of companies that are transporting. However, to also just note that the volume variance percentage for November was 0.64, which is less than 1%. So members, any questions, comments before we make a decision? Any questions of clarity, perhaps? None? So members, can we then, by show of hands, can I see if we can make it, if we can approve that that recommendation is set out on paragraph 14. Thank you, Mr. Mkhize. Thank you, Mr. Pukula. Madam Pongosa, happy to note. Thank you, Madam Pongosa. I'm also happy to note. So, Mr. Ngumalo, you've got a decision. The report is so noted. This therefore concludes all the items that we're going to be discussed in an open platform. And we really like to thank the members of the public that may be following us, and apologize for any hiccups perhaps along the way that we may have had. It is the first week, at least for some of us, it is the first week, although some of us started last week, but it is indeed the first week of the year for these meetings. So if you can bear with us, we will improve with time. We are just warming up. So we'd like to thank you all for your attendance, and then request that Mr. Mateja